Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and having a fine ending to your day and a fantastic start to your week out there so far. Got you a big update tonight, and I think a lot of you folks know what we're going to discuss. It's this significant outbreak of storms, of severe storms that is now expected for tomorrow. The chances for severe weather has increased. The confidence has increased, and we have two areas, another bimodal setup. It's almost eerie how similar it is to last Friday. We basically have two moderate risk and enhanced risk surrounding both of these moderate risk. And you've got a southern mode and a northern mode. It looks the exact same, but they will be different, and we'll talk about that in this video. But the good news out of the bad news, which is what happened Friday, the good news out of that is a lot more people are on guard and aware. So, I can tell just by how much more views my videos have got, if you compare leading up to this event to compare to leading up to last event. So that tells me a lot of people are a lot more focused in on the weather, and that is a very good thing. So we're going to try to do this for you guys. We're going to try to get very detailed. I got my Google Maps down here right below my monitor again. So if there's some hesitation in the video, some slowing down, it's because I'm looking at my phone right here below the screen. Just trying to make sure I talk about some cities and some small towns that a lot of times are skipped over. We don't just want to mention these household city names like Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Little Rock, things like that. Let's mention some of these smaller towns too. And we're going to try to do that for you folks. We'll give you an update on the blizzard, and then we'll give you some information on what could happen Wednesday. I've had a lot of people ask about Wednesday, which we could have a massive area that could see severe weather. I just don't think it'll be quite as bad as what's going to happen tomorrow. So with that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Thank y'all for the amazing growth over the last several days. It's been awesome. You guys are just supporting somebody that just has a passion, which is for the weather, and I really appreciate y'all just choosing to tune into my videos every single day. And I know there's a lot of people who will watch regardless, but welcome to any new people that subscribe. It's a family type atmosphere here, so thank y'all for all of that. If you guys got anything that I can pray for or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can do that. I can pray over it, and then others can too. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Facebook, especially Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. And, when I talk weather, guys, I'm not like a robot, like there is a tornado watch, and a lot of people like that, but I like to put some humor to situations. Of course, I don't put humor to situations that don't need humor. But, we like to crack some jokes, have a little fun on social media. It's not all serious all the time. It's serious when it needs to be serious. But, if you got Twitter, hit me up on there, Facebook on there also. But water vapor loop. If you notice right in here, and we'll see if we can wake this little booger up over here, you see this digging upper trough out west. Okay. And if you look, you see these clouds kind of shooting off like this. This is our low pressure, and popping off a lot of moisture out west. A low pressure will eventually eject across the Rockies. It's already beginning to do so and move somewhat like this, give or take 100 miles. But this is going to create blizzard conditions up in this region of the country, and then severe weather down here on the kind of the warmer and moist side of this low pressure. And this entire area right into here could see severe weather, and then eventually into Wednesday we'll move it a little bit further east. So that's kind of what's going on. This looks like a bunch of crazy squiggly lines, but this is our upper trough, and let me tell you, by the time we wake up tomorrow and we're given another update, this will look totally different. You will really see a lot of action going on right here. Watches, warnings, advisories. This deep red right here, that is blizzard warnings. It's the real deal, guys. A crazy early April blizzard is cranking up here in the northern plains. The snow will be a little bit further north this time than it was last week. So there's that feet of snow expected over the next 24 to 36 hours. You see all these hot pink colors, that's red flag warnings. The fire risk is going to be a really big deal from areas of Arizona through New Mexico all the way into the central to southern plains. Okay, you got high wind warnings. And typically when you have these systems where low pressure really just ejects really far to the north, you don't have really forcing down here for thunderstorms. So therefore, you just get a lot of dry and windy conditions. So in this case, you look, and I don't show this much, but I think it needs to be shown, the fire weather outlook. You look at this, it's in the extreme category for areas like, far eastern New Mexico, all the way through the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas, all the way into southern and southwest sections of Kansas. Please do not even think about lighting a match out here. There's going to be a lot of brush fires out here, a lot of field fires. I would not be surprised one bit. A lot of dust is going to get blown around out here. Extreme is an extreme word for a reason, okay? So there's going to be a fire risk out here. Of course, you don't have a lot of woods out here, but like I said, a lot of brush fires is certainly possible tomorrow. So please be aware of that. But let's go on and break down the severe weather events. We're going to get very detailed, about as detailed as we can here. 2 moderate risks. This was issued. It was actually rare. Typically, they don't upgrade things in the middle of the afternoon for an event the day before, if that makes sense. Typically, they wait until the overnight model. So I do want to remind you guys, this could be different by the time some of you folks watch this. These moderate might get, connected. But I could see in this case where it don't. But you got a moderate risk down here, moderate risk up here. Enhanced risk, which includes everything in between that. And then a slight risk, which goes from the areas of the plains all the way to areas of the Midwest. And then a small section of the Mid-South. So let's get detailed like we've been doing. Moderate risk mode up here, we call this the northern mode. It's where your kinematics will be the best forcing. It's like deja vu. We're talking about the same townies. Areas like the same townies, the same towns, cities, and communities out here. Peoria, looks like you're in the enhanced risk, but, this could get, trend a little bit further back east. But, don't tunnel vision so much on the risk areas in this case. It's very close. You're going to have a chance for some nasty weather. Davenport, Iowa City, you guys are going to have some nasty weather. Clinton, Cedar Rapids, it looks like this extends just into for you folks. You go down here to Burlington, Iowa. It even gets into a small section of Missouri. This probably does include Memphis, Missouri, Wayland, Rutledge. So you guys probably are right on the fringe of the moderate and enhanced risk. Areas like Peoria, you're in the enhanced risk, which is the level 3 out of 5. Quincy, enhanced risk. St. Louis, enhanced risk. Springfield, enhanced risk. Chicago, slight risk. The real big question here in the heart of Missouri, like Columbia, Missouri, even though the Kansas City, is are you going to have any prefrontal storms that get fired up? If you do, all hazards are possible. And we're going to talk about that here, how it's not going to be as widespread as last Friday. But if you are close to a storm, are impacted by a storm, it will have a chance to produce a strong tornado, no doubt. There is rocket fuel as far as ingredients just waiting to be ignited out here. But I'll talk about why it's not necessarily going to mean anything in certain areas. But this is the areas under the gun. Des Moines, it looks like you're in the enhanced risk. But, this could pivot back and forth. I think Des Moines was, and Ames was in the enhanced risk or slight risk the day before the last event too. And then the moderate risk extended back west. But as far as the risk categories, tornado risk, there is now a 15% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location in this red area, which includes those towns I just mentioned for Iowa, Illinois, and far northeast Missouri. There's in the yellow region, that is at least a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. And then the brown is the same criteria, but it's a 5% risk of the same criteria. The black outline region, if you're wondering what these checkered marks are, that is a hatched risk. And in the weather world, that means that there is also a 10% risk of a significant whatever category we're in. And in this case, it's tornadoes of a significant tornado. Storm Prediction Center considers a significant tornado an EF2 or higher in this case. So this doesn't mean there's a 15% added to the 10%. It's its own risk, if that makes any sense. Okay, hail risk will be pretty high up here. Okay, with the dry and cool air aloft punching through with the approaching low pressure and the trailing cold front. 30% risk of hail pushing 1 inch diameter within 25 miles in any given location. And then the yellow is the 15% risk. Same criteria. The hatch risk in this black outline region, that is at least a 10% risk of significant hail, which is 2 inch diameter or larger in this case. There will be a wind threat, but I'm not seeing it as bad as maybe last Friday. But I would not be surprised one bit if we get a hatch risk for this too. Right now, just a big swath of a 30% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher, which is around 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given location. The yellow is a 15% risk, same category. But if you notice, this extends. What I'm watching with this is a developing line of storms that could be quite, it could be quite severe and dangerous along the trailing cold front. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Southern mode, you got a moderate risk down here. Okay, this does not include Little Rock. Little Rock, you're in the enhanced risk. Okay, this does include, I would say, just into Fort Smith. This guy's right over the Ozarks. Okay, there's a lot of smaller towns. Russellville, you're in the moderate risk. Harrison, moderate risk. Fayetteville, looks like you're just inside the enhanced risk. Hot Springs, you're in the moderate risk. It looks like barely. It doesn't quite reach to Texarkana, but it does reach to DeQueen and Nashville, Arkansas here in western Arkansas. Enhanced risk does include Texarkana, a good little portion of northeast Texas. It does include Little Rock, pretty close to Jonesboro, but I think Jonesboro's right here in the slight risk. Poplar Bluff, enhanced risk. And so the threat down here is a little different, okay? I think most of the day tomorrow down here, you're not going to get any storms. So you're hearing it here, okay? And you'll hear it from others too. If you go throughout the entire day in Arkansas and southern Missouri with absolutely no storms, please do not let your guard down, okay? I think the worst weather, and it explains this clear as day in the Storm Prediction Center discussion, is going to be a nocturnal threat. In fact, they're thinking it might not really get cranked up till around midnight. So I would say that this risk down here is for a nocturnal threat. Same risks as you have up here. 15% risk of a tornado within 25 miles at any given point. The yellow is a 10% risk, same criteria. And then you got the black outlined area going over the same two yellow and red regions. And remember, what is that? A chance for an EF2 or higher tornado or stronger tornado, a 10% chance of that. So hail, not as big of a deal down here, but you will have to watch for any supercells when they fire up later tomorrow night. They could have a chance to produce hail. And then winds, you got to watch same areas all the way down here, especially with a trailing cold front that's going to develop a line of storms. There will be a chance of damaging winds. Remember that red is a 30% risk of damaging winds pushing 50 knots or higher. So let's break it down. A more broad look at what exactly is going on, full range of the HRRR model. We'll start off Tuesday morning, all out snows going on here, and we'll get a more detailed look at this for you folks up here watching and wanting information on that. But we'll start off tomorrow morning around 7 a.m. I want to quickly remind you guys, if you're a new viewer, I always want to mention this. If you're confused at what time we're at, because I'll be honest that sometimes I forget to mention it, back this up 1 hour because this entire storm will be in Central Time for tomorrow just about. So back this up 1 hour because this is an Eastern Time and I can't change it. If you can, I'm not sure how. But we're getting into late morning. At this point, we're getting into early afternoon tomorrow. Then bang. Initiation of storms right here in northeast Missouri, and then they ride that Illinois-Iowa state line in southeast Iowa. And when I tell you these storms are going to be disruptive, I'm telling you guys, please be aware if you're in this region tomorrow. These storms are going to produce all hazards and the chance for one of these high-end tornadoes, EF3, EF4 tornadoes. I'm not trying to sound the hype alarm, but it's the real deal. At the same time, you got an all-out blizzard going on in the north central and northern plains up here. And then these storms kind of move into southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and then we watch the nocturnal threat down here in southern Missouri and Arkansas, and then the trailing cold front behind this. All these will continue to have all the ingredients to produce severe weather. And then we get into Wednesday, and then this is when we have to watch severe weather for Wednesday morning, which I think could uptrend. But we'll talk about that when we know more. All right, so Iowa, you were the first state. So like I said, bear with me. We're going to try to mention some towns, even though I've pretty much mentioned them when breaking down the risk criteria. But really, I think Des Moines, Ames, points west. I'm not saying you're in the clear, but I'm saying the chances drop off significantly for any bad weather. But we're getting into noon, getting into early afternoon. Here it is. The first little storm pops up, and it's intense right off the dot. There's going to be what we call a cap in place. And if you're immediately asking, what is a cap, Mitch? Hold tight, and I will explain it to you, I promise. But we keep going. And this little booger right down here, this little storm quickly grows up very quickly. As we get into 2, 3 p.m., they are moving very quick also. I would say the storms aren't moving quite as quick as maybe they were Friday, but this quickly evolves into a really disruptive area of storms. And then it begins to enter Iowa. And the short range models has been adamant at storms firing up here, right here in extreme northeast Missouri, and then immediately moving into extreme eastern areas of Iowa and then Illinois. But let's focus in on Iowa because we have a whole nother section for other states. But watch out Burlington. Okay, I would say around 3, 4 p.m. tomorrow. Very bad storms. These will be producing all hazards. We'll have I'm not going to say there's a 100% chance there'll be a storm here tomorrow at 4 o'clock, but there's a solid chance there's going to be a storm around at minimum. These storms will continue to ride up the border, and then they will threaten Davenport. I don't even know how to pronounce that name. I'm not even going to try. What is that? Muscatine, Iowa. I think you're in a big risk area. Grandview, Wapello. Hopefully I'm saying these. Morning Sun. That's a cool name. All these little towns and communities in this little area in far eastern and southeastern Iowa, sometime mid to late tomorrow afternoon, you'll have about, I would say, a 1 to 4 hour window where these storms will have a chance to produce a wedge tornado. I'm telling you, there is all the ingredients in the atmosphere up here. And you guys, unfortunately, happen to be the favored the favored area for forcing. So if you live in this area of Iowa tomorrow, okay, I would strongly be weather aware. Cancel any outdoor activities. I'm telling you, just in case. There will be some bad storms in this area in Iowa tomorrow. Talking about the significant tornado parameter in this region, it really builds in as we get into the, tomorrow afternoon. We start to get into about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. And like I said, it's this region. Now, when you see these 10s and 11s and these bright, vibrant purples and hot pinks and whites, do not immediately think there's a 100% chance I'm going to get a tornado in my backyard in my town. Just know that this accounts for the ingredients in the atmosphere really at the surface for a tornado. So just look at this and say, hey, the ingredients are there for a tornado. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but the ingredients, the higher this number, are certainly there for tornadic activity, and it really spikes here, what we call the STP for short, significant tornado parameter, right here in extreme eastern Iowa as we get into the afternoon hours, okay? And but it's high, there's a little streak right up here too, that extends all the way, let's see, all the way into like Waterloo, places like that. But we don't know if we're going to get any storm development all the way to Waterloo, okay? That doesn't mean just because you see these crazy colors, that don't mean you're going to get a storm on your house. But man, there's going to be a favorite time period tomorrow afternoon to tomorrow evening. And even after the storms are done, I mean, you still have the favorable atmosphere for severe weather. We look at the updraft helicity swaths and all the way through the entirety of this event. And like I said, you see these areas in kind of green, yellow, and red. Once you start to get more into the yellow and red, that means the HRRR model is really liking the idea of some of these storms rotating in this area. That doesn't mean just because you have a rotating updraft does not mean you're going to have a tornado, but it means that the storm is rotating, which is what we call a supercell, which in this case, could potentially produce a tornado. So it's really high right here in far eastern Iowa. So let's definitely watch out for that. I would say the time frame would be anywhere from 3 to 8 p.m. tomorrow here in Iowa, okay? Wisconsin, don't want to leave you folks out. And bear with me as I get a sip of water. Long video, and I certainly I know I made the community post earlier about, apologizing about coughing, but I know that's got to be loud on your screen. But of course, allergies, when you make, 30 to 40 minute videos twice a day for about 5 days in a row, it's a lot of talking. Imagine talking for 45 minutes straight. That's what I've been doing with these videos. So we're getting into tomorrow morning. You got a little morning convection going on, maybe some elevated storms move into southern Wisconsin, but really the atmosphere will try to clear out. And then even around 2 to 3 p.m., right around Milwaukee, Madison, you might have some rumble of thunder, maybe a little bit of hail. But really, as we're getting, I would say, into tomorrow late afternoon, please be careful. Let's try to zoom into some towns and communities. Platteville, Dodgeville, here in southern and southwest Wisconsin, maybe around 6, 7 p.m., some nasty weather begins to enter your area. Madison, Janesville, certainly Monroe, in areas of southern Wisconsin could get some bad weather, I would say, around dinner time tomorrow. But what I want you guys to know, it's kind of the same situation as it was, when was it? Last Friday. When was I? I mean, I know what day it was. Last Friday, where we had a big cutoff of stable air, and then air that could produce a tornado. And that's going to be the same way in these southern sections of Wisconsin tomorrow. So we'll watch for some really bad weather for areas of far extreme southern areas of the state. And then, you could even get some rumbles of thunder all the way up to Green Bay tomorrow evening. And then we got an all-out icing event in northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan for tomorrow, really cranking up tomorrow PM. But that's pretty much it. But, the significant tornado parameter will try to spike in this area also tomorrow. It will try to rise all the way to above 10 in this region. But look how it immediately cuts off here as we're getting into, late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. So it really tells you that the atmosphere really gets unfavorable once you start to get into a little bit further north in southern Wisconsin. But, listen, the atmosphere will be supportive for severe weather down here for a period of time and for a very small area. The updraft helicity swath, hey, shows some spinners around the Milwaukee area, some little areas showing up even this pretty far north in central Wisconsin. So, look at this and say, hey, there is a chance for some rotating storms, maybe a tornado warning in some southern counties in Wisconsin tomorrow. So please be aware sometime, I would say later afternoon, maybe in the evening and late evening hours in this region. Next thing we'll cover is Missouri and Illinois. And we even talk about Indiana. We're not going to talk about Arkansas in this. So really the majority of this panel will be Missouri and Illinois. We'll start off around 7 a.m. Remember, look at this time frame right here and back it up 1 hour. I know it's pretty small on your screen. We get this going. Some initial storms possible late morning, early afternoon in Illinois. I don't think they're going to do much. It's really the quiet after this that comes. We're getting into about 2-3 p.m. Here's that storm I just mentioned that will form maybe, just, let's say, come on, let's get it down here. I would say that's what, just northwest of Columbia, Missouri, and then quickly explode. So like I said, in Missouri, early in the storm mode, I would really favor this area, Rutledge, Memphis, Wayland, those areas up here, all these small towns and far northeast Missouri. Please watch out around 2 to 3, 4 p.m. tomorrow. Give or take an hour, as obviously I don't want to be exact, but for my folks in Illinois, like I said, this is going to ride that Iowa-Illinois state line. It'll try to move over sections and watch out. Monmouth, probably didn't say that right. Alado, please be careful in that region. Reynolds, this will move into these areas. Maybe even Galesburg. There's a lot of small towns and communities, just like there is anywhere in any state. But watch out in this area of Illinois in general tomorrow. Far extreme western and northwest Illinois in these sections. Please be careful. If anybody is going to get a monster tornado in daylight hours tomorrow, it's going to be this one. And unfortunately, I think that there's, it's hard for me to say there's 100% chance it's going to happen, but I think there's a good, solid chance that someone in this area is going to see a bad tornado. And then this continues, and they move very quick. And then you got to watch northern Illinois. I would say the Dixon area, Illinois. Watch out just south of Freeport, Rockford, Ottawa. Please be careful in this region. I think there's going to be a powerful supercell, probably late afternoon tomorrow, early evening here in northern Illinois. You've got this lone supercell that has all this environment to really take advantage of south of it. And then after that, it quiets down, potentially. And the reason is because you have a cap in place right here. But before we talk about that, let's keep this going. And then, like I said, it quiets down to the evening around dinner time. You're thinking in this enhanced region, well, heck, we didn't get anything, Mitch. Well, hold up. As we're getting to about 10 p.m., watch out in southeast Missouri. We start to get some storms firing up. Farmington, Poplar Bluff, right as you're laying the kids down for sleep, about to head off for tonight. I'm telling you, if you're in southern Missouri, Arkansas, western Arkansas, and we'll talk about Arkansas here in a second, but southern Missouri, let's just speak on them. Even southern Illinois, please, I beg you, please just set your alarm clock periodically throughout the night. Make sure your phones are loud. If you got a weather radio, obviously you know what to do if you got one. Just know that this is going to crank up right when you're heading to sleep, okay, in this area. And here comes these storms. I know these storms don't look as powerful as these did up here, but these storms begin to develop. They move into southern sections of Missouri, roll over the same areas, and then they continue. And you immediately see this line of storms that develops back here in western Missouri. These could produce tornadoes. At this point, we're in 2 a.m. in 2 a.m. in the morning, Wednesday morning. These storms could be severe in Illinois. Okay, but you still have nocturnal storms firing up ahead of this cold front, which will bring dry, stable, cool air. Anything that forms ahead of this cold front will have a chance to produce a tornado. Okay, I mean, look at this storm right here near Jonesboro, about to enter the boot heel of Missouri. This will even try to get into the Mayfield and Paducah, Kentucky area in western Kentucky. And then, I mean, even at 5 a.m., these storms could be producing along this line of storms, okay? And we start to get into Wednesday at this point. But the significant tornado parameter, now this is going to be very loud visually on your screen, okay? Already in the morning, we have a ton of ingredients into this area, right? So we're getting into, I would say early afternoon, late afternoon, and it really begins to spike as we're getting into late evening for this region. And then this is when the ingredients really get primed, I think, as basically that mid-level jet really gets kind of placed more stacked on with that low-level jet to create a lot of spin to the atmosphere. But like I said, and I'll mention this over and over again, just because you have high STP readings, significant tornado parameters, does not mean you're necessarily going to get a tornado. Okay, but this really spikes overnight, tomorrow night for these regions. Look how high these readings are for Missouri. But you see this stout cutoff? That is the cold front. Immediately behind this, your tornado threat your severe weather threat completely disappears. We're at 1 a.m. at this point. Significant tornado parameter is pretty daggum high in central Missouri. And we need to watch out for any cells that develop in this region of highlighted area right in here. The updraft helicity swath, obviously we need to watch out for these storms that get going in western and northwestern Illinois. This is where I think if you're going to get another unfortunate wedge tornado, it's going to be in this area. But if you look, they're all scattered about here in Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas. We'll talk about Arkansas in a second. Even some swaths showing up in Indiana. So that tells me that you're going to have spin-ups in that squall line, and anything that gets going ahead of that line, I think, is the biggest concern with this. So a nocturnal threat, I really think, for the southern half of Missouri tomorrow night. I mean, we can only look at Surface Cape right here, and yeah, that's because we're on a weather bell. Just remember, this is just Surface Cape, but it really gives you the idea tomorrow. There is a ton of fuel at the surface for these storms to fill the fuel off of. 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram at the surface for these storms to really pop off here in northeast Missouri and in Illinois. A ton of CAPE just sitting just above the atmosphere, basically rocket fuel to ignite these storms. And something dangerous is going to pop off here right in this region tomorrow. Unfortunately, I really think it is. So if you're wondering why you didn't see any storms around the St. Louis area, for example, you go back to this, if we go through the entire event, you don't really see any storms throughout the day, throughout the night tomorrow. You finally see storms with the cold front that moves through late overnight tomorrow night to the wee hours of the morning. It's because of this. I take a sounding around tomorrow afternoon just outside of St. Louis, which has an enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms. Your eyes immediately go to possible hazard type, none. And you're thinking, how's that possible? If you know a little bit about weather, how's that possible when you have dew points in the 60s, 80-degree temperatures? You have pretty high CAPE readings in this area. Well, it's because the higher up this red goes, That's the higher up in the atmosphere you go, aloft. We call it aloft. So the temperatures naturally drop the higher up you get. You know that when you go higher up in elevation, the mountains, the higher up you go, the cooler the temperatures go. Dew points drop normally too. So you're 80 degrees at the surface. You drop down all the way, probably 60s and 70s. And then you actually climb again about 5, 6, 7,000 feet up in the atmosphere. That's what we call warm air aloft. It's basically an area of stable warm air that prevents updrafts from continuing to grow into the upper levels of the atmosphere. So you can have, all the fuel in the world right into here, okay? And then all the fuel in the world up into here. But this little area right into here that you have warm air, it prevents the storms. You see these big, huge cumulus clouds that builds up in the sky. It looks like a nuclear bomb went off. That's the updrafts building and strengthening. The higher they get up, the more powerful the storm is. But this little area of warm air aloft where the temperature actually rises several thousand feet up in the air, that prevents storm growth. So that's what we call a cap, okay? And this entire area of Arkansas, speaking, get another sip of water before we break down Arkansas. This entire area of Arkansas is going to be capped out tomorrow, meaning you're going to not really have a big initiation with storms. And if you remember, there's an immediate big difference for you folks in Arkansas that come to mind. As early as just after lunchtime Friday, we had storms exploding. I think the tornado that went just outside of Little Rock pretty much went through Little Rock. Happened like mid-afternoon. That's not going to be the case tomorrow. So I want you guys to know that because I don't want anybody letting their guard down. So we're getting into 2, 4, 5, 6 p.m. At this point, we're at 6 p.m., right? A little bit of convection is just getting going, right? When we're starting to get to the point where the sun's about to start slowly setting, a little bit of shower activity, okay? Not a whole lot going still, though. We get all the way to about 10 p.m. Finally, you get some convection that pops off. Here in maybe in the Ozarks area, just outside of Little Rock. We already talked about Missouri. And then this continues, and then you got to watch. This is around midnight. Here comes a cell that develops, and I know this just looks like a little baby cell, but you got to watch out for these. Marshall, Mountain Home, Yaleville, Harrison. Watch out for these storms that begin to develop. And then we keep this going, and then watch out this cell right here. Okay, this is around 2 a.m. in the morning. This is really close to Batesville, Newport, Hardy, even getting close to Jonesboro, Arkansas. And I really think, and the Storm Prediction Center obviously does too, that we could have more storms than what this is showing. That's why it's important to keep you guys updated. That's why I do it 2 times a day, because the information from the morning video could be totally different from the information that comes out in the evening. But here comes some more storms. And I'm telling you guys, these storms can produce, even though this is more so just a line of storms around 4 a.m., I think that we will have an ongoing tornado threat at minimum. Maybe not outbreak, but threat. Nocturnal threat for tornadoes in Arkansas, areas of extreme eastern Oklahoma, and even into northeast Texas. You need to watch these storms that are developing right here. And then they get pretty powerful in northeast Texas around Texarkana. At this point, we're around 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. And I'm telling you, there's still going to be an ongoing tornado threat as we're getting into 6 a.m. I know you're thinking, well, dang, this doesn't even look like a Tuesday event anymore. But this really slows down. For example, there's not much storm movement from, 2 a.m. to, about 8 a.m. at this point. It only travels maybe a couple hundred miles. So the storm movement is very slow. But I think we're waking up Wednesday morning to a tornado threat, potentially from northeast Arkansas all the way through the heart of northeast Texas through the heart of Arkansas, all the way up into the Boot Hill of Missouri, maybe even southern Illinois, okay? I think this is continuing to rage on. Significant tornado parameter in this region. Oh, I just forgot. I already had it up here. We get this going, okay? It's not very high tomorrow, but as we're getting into tomorrow night, it gets pretty high in this region. That's why the ingredients really get high after that sun sets tomorrow in Arkansas and surrounding areas and eastern Oklahoma. Right ahead of this tailing off cold front, this is when the ingredients really start to get pretty high for a tornado in this region. Okay, you look at the updraft helicity swath, and we'll have to go back to the 18Z here. And, it shows a lot of areas that you got to watch. I mean, look at this area down here near just outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You got to watch these storms right here in northeast Texas. But, I mean, you have some spinners that move right through Arkansas into the overnight hours into Wednesday morning. So there is going to be some producers out here. So that's the breakdown for tomorrow. We'll do it one more time for tomorrow morning. There is now a massive slight risk of severe thunderstorms that extend all the way to Louisiana, even a small section of Texas, all the way up into the Great Lakes region, the Ohio Valley, and even sections of the interior Northeast, basically from Rochester, New York, all the way to Shreveport, Louisiana. Somebody's probably going to get an enhanced risk. Somewhere probably in here, up here in the Ohio Valley, or some people call Ohio the Midwest, which is still really weird to me. I just don't associate Ohio with the Midwest. I don't associate Ohio with anything even close to the term West. But I mean, hey, that's cool. But getting distracted. I'm cracking myself up here. But slight risk for Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Louisville, Nashville, Memphis. But I could see this uptrending. Probability right here. Remember, at day 3, we don't break it down: tornado, hail, and damaging winds. But you have a huge hatched risk, okay, which extends from areas of Missouri, far southeast Missouri, through basically the entire eastern half of Illinois, almost all of the state of Indiana, and a large portion of Michigan, okay, and about the entire 70% northern half of Ohio, far northwest Pennsylvania, and a very small section of western New York State. This is basically saying, hey, there's a 10% risk of significant severe weather. Is that tornadoes? Is that hail? Is that damaging winds? Is that everything? I do think that there's going to be a chance that somebody could get a 10% risk of a tornado. I think Wednesday is going to uptrend, guys. It just seems like the day after the big event always uptrends. It just seems inevitable. And why do we have this going on? Well, we'll get more detail on this tomorrow. When everybody's going live talking about the events ongoing, we'll try to feed you some information. Like I said, here at Mitch West Weather, we try to stay ahead of the storm. I currently don't have the setup, or definitely don't have the time to go live with you guys, but there's a lot of great people out there to do it. But we'll start off Wednesday morning. Low-level jet really ramping here from Arkansas all the way up into the Ohio Valley, but it kind of flees the scene down here. So it leads me to believe that you're going to be a lacking of what we call a low-level flow down here, the low-level jet. So I think that with the slowing, kind of this stalled frontal boundary as the system heads on off, I think you'll be lacking some kinematics for a tornado threat. But you folks for Michigan, Ohio, and surrounding states, you can have a tornado threat on your hands Wednesday afternoon. We have to watch the storm mode in this region. Kinematics are there, and there'll be just enough thermodynamics. Now, I know you're thinking on your screen, Mitch, I can barely see this. We'll get much more detail, but we're not in good range of the short-range models yet. But we go all the way out to about 1 p.m. Central Time. You see storms from Arkansas all the way into Ohio, all the way into the southern tier of New York State through northwest Pennsylvania. I think if you were to keep this going another several hours, you would have the potential for maybe some isolated cells popping off. And looking at Michigan, you have some cells popping off. So we'll get more detail on this, I promise, for you folks. But I do think there is a threat at minimum for a tornado and damaging winds, okay? The blizzard, this is really going downhill for Wyoming. This will continue to really crank up overnight tonight into the wee hours of the morning for North Dakota. It'll start snowing heavily for far northwest Nebraska. I'm sorry, guys. Excuse me. We get into 10 a.m. It's snowing very heavily for, central, northern, and western South Dakota. Raging blizzard beginning to crank up, especially for northern South Dakota. Snow is already moving into southern North Dakota. We continue to keep this going. We're going all the way out to tomorrow evening. And an all-out blizzard is ongoing here in areas of central and eastern South Dakota, and then eastern North Dakota, and then far northern and northwest sections of Minnesota. 1 to 2 inch per hour rates and gusty winds in these areas are going to be there. And then some icing in this region of Minnesota and then Wisconsin also. And this will continue. And I think it will begin to taper off for the Dakotas probably Wednesday morning sometime. Winds are going to be high. They're going to really crank up, I would say, tomorrow. I think as you get into tomorrow afternoon, you're going to have an area of winds pushing 30 to 40 miles per hour in areas of northern and northeast South Dakota. They really get strong, and areas of eastern North Dakota probably sometime tomorrow, late afternoon, evening. But then you keep this going, and really the backside of this low pressure could be intense wind-wise, 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts through this area. But I can tell you the winds don't look as crazy as they did maybe a day or so ago. But snowfall between now and the duration of this event, widespread 12 to 24 inches is possible in this entire swath of the Dakotas, and then northern Minnesota, a foot to a foot and a half of snow is likely. And we know, we look at the ice accumulations, they're starting to increase. In fact, we can actually look at the National Weather Service. I think this is better. Let's go down to the icing. And certain areas, might sneak and get a quarter of an inch of ice. They're going for a quarter inch of ice in a very small section in southwest Minnesota. And then some icing just north of Minneapolis. Maybe a tenth of an inch of ice is possible. Duluth could get a couple tenths of an inch of ice. So from my folks here in the upper Midwest, do not want to leave you guys hanging. And I'm sorry I didn't pull up the precipitation map, but I'll tell you how much snow the National Weather Service is going for. Not a lot. This won't be a big winter weather event for you guys in the UP, but maybe an inch or two is possible. Northeast Minnesota, several inches of snow is possible. Far northern section Wisconsin, a couple inches. But watch out for some freezing rain. I think this could be a moderate freezing rain event where a tenth to maybe a 20th of an inch of ice could fall at most for these sections up here. So that's all I got, guys. Made it through most of the video without coughing. I felt like that went much better than this morning's video. Thank y'all for the amazing support. We'll do it one more time tomorrow morning, and then we'll try to figure out what's going to happen for Wednesday. God bless all y'all. Have a great night, and talk to you soon.